Okay, the purpose of this video is to give guys and gals a general understanding of the basic concept of how this brush truck will work. There's two different colors that we tried to keep color coded on the back of the brush truck. Okay, anything that you see on the back of the brush truck that's black is referred to the Darley pump, and then from here, for the purposes of the training, we'll refer to the Darley pump as the stationary pumping. Anything that you see is labeled red with the gauges are going to be referred to for the auxiliary pump. So you have a tank to pump valve for the auxiliary, you have a tank fill valve for the Darley pump. This is the pressure relief valve is for the Darley. We have the transfer valve for the stationary pumping. You have a throttle for the Darley pump. You have a throttle for the auxiliary pump. The basic concept is the auxiliary pump is going to be the sole pump being utilized in pump and roll operations only. You will not be using the auxiliary pump for stationary pumping. When you are in a fixed location and you're doing stationary pumping, the Darley pump, which will be engaged in a panel, and we'll show you that here in just a few minutes, will be the key component to be used in the scenario. There is one large discharge valve on the back of the brush truck, and it is the Darley pump only. The auxiliary pump does not supply pressure to the 2.5. All of the discharges on the brush truck have pressure from the stationary pump. Only the 1.5-inch discharges on the brush truck have pressure from the auxiliary pump. Okay? The number 4 discharge, the 2.5 discharge on the rear, is the only discharge on the brush truck that does not have foam. And I repeat, this one does not supply foam. All the other 1.5-inch discharges on the brush truck does have foam, whether you're using the auxiliary pump or the stationary pump. Okay, so that's the basic components of the back of the brush truck. So the next step will be to show you guys how to do the pump and roll operation using the auxiliary pump. Okay, this is for the pump and roll operation. So your engineering, you've got your captain and your firefighter in the back. You mark on scene. So the first thing you do is you're going to go to neutral. You're going to set your brake. And you're going to go over here and you're going to engage your auxiliary pump. Keeping in mind that if you start the auxiliary pump from the cab, you have to shut it off from in the cab. It does not shut off from the rear panel. Okay? So you're going to turn your switch on. You're going to start your auxiliary pump, and you're going to watch for pressure to build on your gauge here to signify that the pump is running. Okay? Now, while the firefighter is getting out, putting his webbing on and getting the front bumper line pulled, we got a couple of things in the back to check. So we'll get together in the back and I'll show you what those are. Okay, so while your firefighter is getting ready to do his operation, you're going to come back there and you're going to check 4 things. You're going to check to make sure your tank to pump is open, and I'll point it out here in a second. You're going to check to make sure you have pressure on your discharge gauge back here, just like you have in the cab. You're going to pull your primer, and it's the electric primer. You're going to do that for 5 or 10 seconds, and that's just to vacate any air that might have gotten in the volute in the auxiliary pump while you're driving. And then the last thing is you're going to turn on the foam if necessary and set your percentage. Okay? Tank to pump is open. You got pressure on the discharge gauge. You're going to pull prime with the electric primer. 5 to 10 seconds is fine. And then you're going to turn your foam on here and set your percentage to whatever the desire is. Okay? Once those are done, now you're going to re-enter the cab and get ready for your pump and roll. Okay, we're back in the cab, and remember, if you're getting ready to do pump and roll and you're going to go off the pavement, you have to engage the 4-wheel drive. So the first thing you're going to do is you're going to shift your transfer case to low, and it's a 2-stage switch. Then you're going to engage the front axle. Then you're going to engage your automatic fan override switch. All right, and then you're going to adjust the throttle to the desired pressure for the firefighter out front, which is about 70 to 80 psi. Okay, so now you're going to disengage the brake. You're going to shift into low first range. You see your front axle engaged, indicator light came on, and you are ready to pump and roll. Okay, now I'm going to show you how to fill the water tank on this brush truck. There's only one intake on this brush truck, so you're going to hook your hydrant source to your intake here. I've already got a short fill hose with a ball valve connected to the hydrant, so what you're going to do is you're going to take your line and you're going to connect it. Remember, anything that's filled is a female coupling. Anything that's pressure is a male coupling. Now you're going to charge your hydrant source. Then you're going to come over and slowly open your intake valve. And then you're going to open your tank fill. Allow water to flow. You're going to watch your gauges to make sure that your level is full and that your gauge is actually reading. We're going to watch and see that the water comes out of the top of the tank, because this brush truck does not have an overflow mechanism for the tank. So it's going to come out of the second port, which you see there. It's important to note that the first one has a clamp on it. That's the foam. You cannot have a clamp on the second one, because if you have a water supply like this off a hot hydrant and you open the tank fill, you could explode the tank. Okay, you marked on scene, and your assignment is you got to do stationary pumping for a line that's already in place. So you're going to go into neutral. You're going to set your brake. You're going to engage your stationary pump, which is the switch right here. It's going to go on. You're going to see the indicator light come on. You're going to turn your fan override switch on. Okay? Now we're going to exit the cab. Okay, for the sake of this training, we're going to use the booster line to show the operation. So first thing, you're going to chock the wheel. And you're going to come around here. And you're going to check to make sure you got pressure on your Darley gauge. Remember, the stationary pump is all black gauges. All right? You're going to pull prime for 5 seconds or so. Make sure you got a good sound. You're going to crack your tank fill so you have water flowing. All right? This is the Darley throttle. So you're going to increase your pressure and watch your pressure come up on your gauge over here. We'll go to 100 for the sake of this scenario. So now I'm going to go ahead and charge my line. Okay, so once the water's flowing, you're going to make adjustments accordingly. So I'm going to increase my pressure a little bit. Then I'm going to turn my pressure relief on, which is right here. Remember, black is for the stationary pump. So you're going to turn it on. You're going to make adjustments and watch for your pressure to drop and your open light to come on your pressure relief. You hear a change. You see a pressure drop. Now I'm going to go back until the gauge closes. Then I'm going to give it 1/4 turn. Your pressure relief is set. If so desired at this time, you're going to turn your foam on and set the proper percentage. You're going to double check and make sure you got a constant water flow. And watch your gauges. Okay, so this is what you do for shutting down. Okay, so the operation is done. So the first thing you're going to do is you're going to go to idle. Then you're going to shut down all of your discharges. Crack your tank fill so you can circulate water. Then you're going to come over here and disengage the pump. And it's just a toggle switch. Make sure that the light goes out and you're off. Okay, we're marking on scene. This is the scenario of running off tank water with the stationary pump, and we'll be doing a changeover. So you're going to mark on scene, you're going to shift to neutral. You're going to engage your parking brake. You're going to engage your PTO right here. When you're in neutral, make sure your light is on, and you're going to turn your fan override switch on. Okay, now we're going to exit the cab and pump from the rear. First thing you're going to do is you're going to chock your wheel. Come around here, and remember, everything black is stationary pumping or with the Darley pump. So first thing you're going to check, you got your pressure on your discharge gauge. You're going to crack your tank fill just a little bit to get water circulating. You're going to pull prime. This is the primer for the stationary pump. Usually 5 to 10 seconds will be good. You're going to check your transfer valve. You're going to be in the appropriate mode that you want. We're in pressure mode at this time. This is what we're going to do for this operation. Okay, so now what you're going to do is you're going to slowly increase your pressure to the desired pressure. Let's go to 120 for this operation. Water coming!
Water!
So now that we got water flowing, what we're going to do is we're going to engage our pressure relief. You're going to turn it on and you're going to set your pressure. You can see it's real touchy, it's easy to adjust. So once you get it to your proper pressure, you're going to turn it up twice. All right. At this point, if you need foam, you're going to turn your foam system on and you're going to set your percentage that you need. Okay? So the next step we're going to do is we're going to establish a water supply and we're going to do a hydrant changeover. Okay? So you're going to put your water, hook to your water source. You're going to hook it to your only intake that you have on the back and you're going to charge the hydrant. Okay. Now that you got a water supply coming in, first thing you're going to do is you're going to shut off your pressure relief. You're going to slowly, just like you would on a Type 1, you're going to reduce your RPMs, watching your gauge, and you're going to slowly open your intake. Until you have achieved at idle your discharge pressure. Once it equals out, we're back to 120. You're going to return on your pressure relief valve. You're going to do the adjustments as needed. Once you get it set to 120, and then I'm going to turn it a quarter turn. I'm going to open my tank fill so I can fill the tank. You've done a changeover. You're at your proper pressure. Once the tank is full, you can close your tank fill valve. I'm going to crack it open just a little bit more. Two things you're going to watch when you're doing the fill. You're going to watch your indicator lights. At the same time, water coming out of the top of the tank. Now remember, this one does not have a overflow system on here, so it's not going to run water underneath. It'll come out the top. Okay, now our tank is full. I'm going to go ahead and shut down the tank fill. Shutting down.
Shutting down.
So now we're going through shutdown operation. You're going to close your intake suction, which is going to change your intake pressure, of course, and your discharge. So if you're still flowing water, you got to make adjustments with your pressure relief. But in this scenario, we're doing complete shutdown. So now you're going to slowly open your tank fill, keep water recirculating. Then you're going to come around, get back in the cab, and disconnect your PTO. Okay, in this scenario, you got the assignment of initially starting pumping operation, stationary pumping with tank water, and then we're going to switch over to do a draft operation. So you're going to mark on scene, you're going to shift to neutral, you're going to engage the parking brake, you're going to turn your fan override switch on. Okay, now we're going to exit the cab. We're going to walk back here, and the first thing we're going to do is want to make sure all your valves are closed back here. You're going to switch your transfer valve in for volume, okay? In is volume, out is pressure. You're going to make sure your pressure relief is off, and what we want to do is we want to hook up our hard suction. Now, I've previously hooked the hard suction hose up. There's 20 feet of hard suction hose on this brush truck with the strainer already attached, okay? Most importantly, you want to make sure your couplings are tight and secure, because 9 times out of 10, if you get an air leak and you can't pull a draft, it's probably because you have an air leak in one of your fittings. So once you get them all together, you're going to take the strainer in, put it in the water first. Make sure you have a clean water source when you're using the drafting operation. Hook your hard strainer up, and then tighten your coupling. Now at this point, you're going to walk around and you're going to do a full 360, and what we want to do is check to make sure that all the valves are closed. You're going to make sure that that valve is closed. Walk around to the front. You're going to make sure that your bumper line is closed. Walk around to the side. You're going to make sure this valve is closed. You're going to make sure that your booster line valve is closed. And you're going to return to the back of the brush truck. So the first thing you're going to do is we have to go to the front of the cab, and we're going to engage the PTO, and then we'll come back and we'll start the drafting operation. To engage the PTO, all you do is flick the toggle switch in because you're already in neutral. Check to make sure that the indicator light comes on. Okay, we've engaged the pump, and we have our hard suction hooked up. So the first thing you're going to do is you're going to close your tank to pump valve. It's an air actuated valve. Remember, all the black labels are for the Darley or the stationary pump. We have an indicator light there. All right, so now you're going to open your intake and you're going to pull prime. You're going to pull prime for 30 to 45 seconds. You're going to look, listen, and feel. Looking for the water continuously to flow. Check to see if you have pressure. You're going to open your tank fill. Increase your RPMs. And now you're filling your tank. Okay, now you're ready to flow water. Water coming? Now remember, we walked around and we shut all the valves off, so I got to open that valve for this line. Okay, now that we got water flowing, I'm going to increase the RPMs to our proper PSI. Then I'm going to turn the pressure relief on, and I'm going to set the proper pressure relief. Remember, a quarter turn up once you get to your discharge pressure. I'm going to open the tank, fill just a little bit so I can fill the tank. Once the tank is full and the operation is done, we're going to shut down the line and we're going to disengage the PTO. Go ahead and shut the line down. Okay, indicator light showing the tank is full. One of the throttle down. Close your tank fill. Now that we're done with our draft, we can go ahead and open our tank to pump and close our suction intake, and we'll run right back off of tank water. Now we're going to walk around this side. We're going to turn the switch off to disengage the PTO.